hard to hear myself. Is it a little low?
Yeah, just go a little closer.
Okay. I just need to go a little closer. Okay. So one of the things for the opportunity to sponsor this Mark's program. So as we do cooperative purchasing for copiers and printers in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. We currently buy for 121,000 students across those 3 states. So our buying power is very large, very attractive for vendors to come in. So just to clearly delineate, we're not a vendor, we're a consulting firm. We don't work for any vendor, nobody owns stock in SBC. We're just simply a vendor neutral consulting firm that will help you do cooperative purchasing. So in this area, we see a lot of cost savings. In most areas, you're probably seeing increases in your budgets. But in this area, we still can glean some cost savings. So I'll give you a couple of examples. You all have various sources that you can purchase from. For example, you have the state bid, Omnia Partners, and Sourcewell are 3 examples that I could think of. So state bid, you have pre-negotiated pricing, but you might not get any necessary help. You might get you get the price and a large catalog, you might get percentage discounts. Now, Omnia Partners and Sourcewell are again pre-negotiated pricing on a bid. So these are the 3 prices I'm seeing for maybe a main office, 60 to 69 agent price. One of the SMUs that we work with in New Hampshire has about 2,000 students. It's a pretty large district, and they did their own RFP. So they did better doing their own RFP than using pre-negotiated pricing. But of course, that requires a lot of work. And then tabulating bids, qualifying them, interviews with vendors, et cetera. Our price that we're going to get with our compensation included is around $4,700. So when we say there's a lot of cost savings in doing cooperative purchasing, imagine that scale of how many buildings you have, or many copiers you have. But it's not all about price. And when vendors say that, they usually mean they want to charge more, and they're going to show you why you should pay more. This is an example of a district in Vermont who has 2,000 students. So they had about 52 devices. I hope it's legible there. If not, we have handouts in the back. But we did an analysis and found a lot of superfluous devices. We right-sized the equipment, and then none of the vendors were allowed to alter the bid specifications. They couldn't come in to try to under-spec. With a bid, there's a lot of pyramid typically, and they're worried about getting the lowest price because that's what their eyes are going to be on necessarily. But we don't allow the vendors to deviate from what we have established with the district. So the current cost savings, the district is paying around $143,000 a year, all in for printing and copying, and we dropped that annually to $178,000. So both are annual figures. So that's what we're typically seeing, around 22%. This is for a customer who has been doing their own RFP year for every 5 years. Now, the other part of our services is analytics, metrics you can't Google. So you might have board members that think you're spending too much on copying and printing. You might feel anecdotally, we think we're printing too much. Well, how about we compare you to your peers? So this is data we're gathering from that 103,000 student population. So the difference is ones that we've just added to our cooperative. We don't yet have the data, but that's a pretty good sample size, 103,000 students. So if they're doing 327 color copies per student, and you're at 700, there might be some action required, right? And it'll help you curtail those costs. And that's after the bid. So our services are the bid process plus managing the asset for the duration of the contract. So your district, you might go out to bid every 3 to 5 years, maybe. Maybe try to extend it to 6th year. We're going out to bid every year. The advantage of that is we're seeing market trends. We're seeing if vendors' services are free. Because once you get the price, you need to figure out who should I award the business to. Most vendors will promise the world, but then after the fact, once they receive the award, will they honor their service level agreements? So by going into bid every year, we're able to see those trends, whether we should continue to award business to them or maybe seek a different vendor. But also, in going out to bid every year, our vendors have more of a commitment. If we don't see them taking care of our other clients, there's no way that we're going to recommend to these ones that are out to bid this year. So we've actually just started our bidding season. We're writing the posting schedules now to go out to bid. And one of the reasons we're doing that is we're seeing at the end of March, a lot of price catalogs are expiring. And what every vendor has told us is they're anticipating a 10 to 20% increase in cost of goods due to primarily tariffs. So we're trying to get ahead of that so that we can lock in pricing for summer installs. So if you are out to bid right now or planning on going out to bid, it would be a good time to do that before. And we're talking actually getting it before the school boards for approval. So these are just some common questions. You might have overlapping contracts. We're able to consolidate everything. You negotiate service contracts as well. It's not just the equipment. And we take care of the local sales rep as well, because they're going to take care of you guys. We make sure that the discounts are from the manufacturer and not the local sales rep. And if you're in the middle of a contract, it's really a good idea to start educating yourself as to which route you want to take when those contracts are up for renewal. Do your own RFP, seeking out a cooperative, etc. So I worked with Ted for several years on this project. It took a few years to actually get the work done. But he's now become a very good friend. We had some issues with the outgoing vendor, contract negotiations, but he wrote such a nice testimonial. I won't read it in the full one. He wrote me like a 2-page testimonial. It was very kind of him to do that. That full one is in the back. Like, this is just an excerpt. So this is the district of Vermont, 2,000 students, and I hope that showcases well your district. So we're just at the back table. If anybody has some questions, feel free to approach us.
Okay, excellent. Tender naming is here, and Tender, would you like to come on up? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Very honored to be here with all of you. I don't think there is a lot that you necessarily have in common, because I know you come from school districts across our state where you might have a completely different regional adjustment from the person sitting beside you. Or you might be in a very well-staffed central office that has an HR person and an assistant superintendent and maybe several clerical staff people, where you might be operating a one-person situation. No matter what your situation is around all of those differences, what I do know is that you do some of the most difficult and thankless jobs that happen to keep our public education system afloat. And therefore, you have my deepest gratitude, my deepest respect, and our hope is at the Department of Education to serve you as well as we possibly can. So rather than making some sort of a speech about things you may or may not be interested in, I have some of our expert team members here, and I'm here. And we would most like to hear what your questions are and how we can serve you all better in any way. So does that sound like good to you? Okay. All right, I'm not gonna make other announcements if necessary, but I think if I come over here, are you guys able to still hear me? Because I have a good teacher voice. So These are the team members at DOE who support you all the time. I'll have them quickly introduce themselves, and then if you'd be willing to share what you most want to hear from us or how we can better serve any of you, that's why we're here, to find out how we can be more helpful. So I'm Pender Macon. It's my honor to be serving as Commissioner of Education for our great state.
And I'm Paula Gravel, the Director of Public School Funding. I hope that I have spoken to at least all of you at least once. If not, call me and we'll talk. Anything that you need, we are always ready to help. And then,
Do we need to pass the microphone?
should we use the mic?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. We can share.
Yes.
Hello, Ida Batista. I'm a public school finance manager. I work with Paula and with the EPS formula, special ed, transportation, all section 3, and the CTE funding formula, as well as some other things.
Good morning, I am Kimberly Hall, recovering business manager from the district for 23 years. I've been at DOE for about 2.5 years as the education data systems manager. So those of you that are familiar with Synergy or NEO and now Connect, that's me.
We may want to keep it with you.
Pitchforks will be in the back after the meeting.
Yeah, sure. So at this point, and if you want, if we can also hand the microphone out to you, unless that would be clarifying, or we'll restate the question so everyone can hear. We'll try that. Does anyone have a topic you'd like us to discuss, or a question we can possibly answer, or a complaint that I can acknowledge, receive, and develop a plan to improve?
Or praises, we'll take those too.
Yes, more feedback is awesome. That's it.
Okay. So I believe what you said, first of all, you said a wonderful event. Secondly, you said that you're fairly new to your role here, and that on the website, you're finding many of the links are broken. Yes. And we have been hearing that. I will tell you that the DOE has been going through a cleanup of our websites over the last number of months. And unfortunately, with that cleanup, some of the important links have been broken. And so as we find the broken links, we are trying to replace them and repair them. So if you find a broken link, please email either myself or whatever team the link is under, like the special ed team, the OSC team, something like that. Please email us and let us know. And we will work very quickly to try to send you what you're looking for that is broken, as well as repair the link. So, yeah, sorry.
Can I add?
Absolutely.
And also, just CC me, if you want to reach me directly, it's pender.macon@maine.gov. Because I directly supervise the communications team, and they've been working with all of our teams across the department on their websites, on the links, on all of that. And so we can immediately rectify the situation. We don't want to have it be a one-by-one situation where, oh, broken link, you know what I mean? But we will systematically fix that. I've never heard that feedback.
Yeah, it's fairly related to the new adjustments they've been doing, so we have been hearing some of that. That absolutely is an appeal, and what they're doing, as you know, so many layers on the website, they're trying to clean it up so that things are easier to find. And in so doing, some links get broken. It's some great feedback. Anyone else has something that they want to discuss, ask questions about? Yes. Do you mind if I bring in the mic? I noticed the acoustics in here are a little difficult.
Thank you. My name is Savannah Golan, I'm the HR director for public schools. I oversee certification and I know that most of our finance and data systems, but they all have to be here. I wanted to, just verbally say out loud that we are super frustrated. Certification harder, rather than make it easier to people, you know, definitely. For example, we have a RN who teaches our CNA course for the LRTC. She's been for 20 years. She's been on our certification violation list for 3 years. Because nobody can figure out what to go to these better, and now she's being told the cost of taking PMT course. So as you can imagine, every month, you're getting that violations report from DOE, and we're going, well, we're trying to solve this, but we're not us to them. The questions that we're continuing to ask them, which are right now, this work, why is this problem down for years? And we're continually told we're working on it. But in the meantime, we have certifications and staff that are just certified. So I think that's incredible. And I'd like to come on here to what certifications we need to address some of these things.
Thanks, Paula. So yeah, did everyone hear the question? Certification concerns. So 2 things. One is we've come a long way. I know you're saying it's getting worse, but I was in the field in 2019 when I would apply. We could call. They only answered the phone 3 days a week for 3 hours in the span of a day. You would wait at least 6 months to have a turnaround for any certification in general. And we've gotten them to the place. So I just have to say, you have to let you know how hard we worked and how seriously we take it. We are now at an average 3-week turnaround for most certification issues. I know you're not having that experience. So I'm going to say that in addition to those wonderful strides forward that we have made, the team is still really challenged by a number of other things. Most people believe that the Department of Education, is in charge of the certification rules, but we are not. There's a State Board of Education. We work hard with them. They have been, in general, they can override, they do override all of our suggestions as to how to make sense of certification for people. They own the rule. The Department of Education team is the unfortunate group that has to try to make sense out of what the State Board of Education has put in place. There is currently, and I'm not sure it's still open, that there's been work done on the certification rule very recently. It might be still on the website of public comment, which would be a great place. They also have certification subcommittee meetings of the State Board, and we can get you the dates. Those are all live Zoom if you ever wanted to just pop in and see what's happening. You do that? Okay, so you'll figure out that. So then the final thing is when you have a very weird conundrum like a nurse who's being asked to take an EMT course, which literally makes no sense whatsoever, would you be kind enough to, when you CC the certification team, or when you write to them, you can again CC me at pender.maven@maine.gov. You might have tried to reach me before on some commission, it's called like commission.doe something. I don't speak those emails, those get farmed out across the department. But in the case where you try the normal route to get something to happen, and it isn't happening well, I need to be able to bring it to the attention of somebody kind of make change around that. So please just let me know. I can solve 0% of the problems I don't know about. And so I'm learning this and learning about what reliefs. These are the things we absolutely can fix, and we are 100% want to fix. So thank you for bringing this to my attention.
It also has to do with the codes that they have, because there's no code for us to pay for it, and then they're telling us, well, just pick the best one that you think you can. Well, that's not
Yes.
Do you mean the code for business officer?
the position title codes.
Data.
Like,
Yeah, you should grab them.
That's it.
Grab them.
That's all me.
That's just a certification, error on certification.
It does. We can add positions. If enough people tell us we need them. What I would recommend, email me directly, let me know which one you're looking at that you think you need. I can look at what we have and see if there's something like this, or we can look at adding this. How I guess, good morning.
I'll go on buses. From my understanding of the bus formula, the state pot money here, pretty similar, and then we send us up, everybody request to put into that bucket, and that money is distributed again. Now that a lot of people are switching to EV buses, which are twice as expensive as diesel buses, how is the state increasing funding for buses, or what's going on that?
Great question, thank you. Okay, so if you weren't hearing, I was talking about the state bus purchase program. Now there is limited funding available every year, which is why we ask you to apply. And then there's a criterion, a Cheryl Brackett on the transportation team is the one who manages that side of it. However, our team handles the funding. So your question is specifically about additional funding if you are purchasing an EV bus. Yes, the buses that are in the master state bid every year, or I think it's every 2 years, I forget now, Cheryl Brackett knows for sure, include EV buses. Now, the way it works is, whatever the bidding is on the specific bus, that's the amount of funding that will be allocated towards the purchase of that bus from the state. So yeah, I believe the funding in the last bidding for EV buses was, I want to say 300,000, something like that. Right around this, I have to double check.
My question is more about if the state wants
Or
to throw that pot of money to make up the fact that buses are getting.
We already did, actually. The year that the EV buses were added to the list, we added $4 million to the pot. We went from 8 million to 12 million. So yes, we did extend that, and we will continue to review that need. And if there are more needed, we will certainly look into that. But yeah, we did in the first year.
There's something over there.
Right. Yes, that's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Recently, our district has been receiving some additional funding, one in particular, AIM community practice funding. There's no GAN, there's no fund code, there's no revenue, we're not sure if it's state funding or federal funding, and just like some preface, and it doesn't come to the district, it goes to the employee who is gonna use the funding, so we're just left wondering if there's a better way to get that information out to us.
Are you certain, because you don't even know if it's coming directly from the state, it's just called community practice funding that a specific employees receive?
The email is from Maine.gov, it does come from somebody at Maine.gov.
Do you have the
Person, Riley, Renee Riley.
Renee was right, so this is probably a student nutrition services, no, it's not, no.
It just, so we're getting multiple, because, so we've gotten 3 recently, and I'm just concerned that it's really repackaged federal funding, that we need to make sure that we're treating.
I think my first question is, do you as a district, did you know this was applied for, or is the staff person applying for it
No,
without
this
your
one,
knowledge?
I think somebody was on a list, like they had gone to something, and then it's like, oh, congratulations,
Okay,
we're giving you money.
okay, so I'm gonna respond. I think the main response is, if you get an email like that, and there's no GAN, there's no coding, send it to us, to our team, mainly I, but somebody else from the finance team, and then we can research it, because the plan, for anything coming through the Department of Ed, is we ask them to speak to us first before they send out award letters, so that we can give the coding with the award letter. But sometimes they sneak out without us knowing. Yeah, so I would say that you get an email like that, and you really ask them what state county code, and you said it's fast, but that's a miscellaneous, we've got another miscellaneous state grants, so use the fund codes that are open for state grants, and there's a miscellaneous grant.
Well, she doesn't know what to say to them.
So it's preschool development grant.
Oh, okay.
So, I'll get that answer to these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a preschool development. Aims?
It's Ames.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah, I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it's a miscellaneous state grant. You don't need to code it specifically because they're tracking the money for handing it out. But I would still say, if you're reading someone saying we're reading the money, just say thank you. Say, can you please provide me the state accounting code? That'll be able to tell us where the source is, and then we can better serve you.
and I don't think they always know, I've asked, and they say, I'll get back to you.
So then just email me.
Okay.
Or you can,
And I'm making an email right now to Renee and the team, just to say, you guys get a hold of the business team, so it's so helpful to us. I mean, like, this is how we want to be doing a better job. And it's very helpful. Thank
and as the commissioner said earlier, we send out emails to this email responding, CC one of us as well. And that way we're in the loop right from the beginning, and we can know to look for it, especially if they're not really sure. And then.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. CFO. First of all, I want to add to the course of thank yous to you. Thank you very much. It's becoming more and more difficult when submitting medical grants for reimbursement to get things approved. Things seem to be getting pickier and pickier. And I'll give you a couple examples. For years, we have been fortunate to receive a lot of federal funds. We use a lot of it for conferences. We use a local travel agent to book travel, and they charge a fee of say $50 per flight. We've recently been told, oh, we can no longer reimburse them. So we're now having to pull out these $50 fees from all of these trips before we can submit for the
Is this
federal grant reimbursement.
Federal grant programs?
It is. Okay, and then the other most recent one that blew my mind was on these trips, we use Uber a lot. And we've been told you can't pay the Uber fee, which is usually $1.50 or something like that. So again, we're having to pull out these tiny little pieces of things, and it's a back and forth, and it's journal entries, and it's just an incredible amount of difficulty and effort to do this, and it just seems to be more and more. I'm not sure if it's coming from the state, I'm not sure if it's coming down to you guys from the feds, but what's the best way that we can push back on this and say this is not reasonable? Thanks.
So the federal administration, I can't speak specifically to Uber fees and those specific things, but they have absolutely been more stringent around what can and cannot be covered with federal grant funding. And our team often learns about it after the fact. So if we could, I mean, and maybe we can reach out to all of the title teams and so forth, make sure that they're aware of the different, so I think we're gonna end up hearing about them as one-offs, because it'll go through and the feds will get it back. And so we'll start collecting that information, but yeah, they are looking at every receipt, and they are being far more stringent than we've ever seen before. So we're sorry that that's happening, but hopefully you're having communication with the teams, the federal teams, or.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it would be, like, we have a grant accountant, so I'm sure she's going back and forth with the grant directors. And we know it's coming down from above, but we're not sure the best thing we can do in the field to
I know.
push that message up how unreasonable.
Well, the Missouri Lost Company is also happening to us for state expenditures of federal money. We are in the same boat, we're getting things kicked back that have never been denied previously, so. we're very sorry and we'll try to be more upfront communicative as we learn what isn't
Thank
going to be allowed.
You the runner? I'll be the runner. And you give a sense.
Okay, now I'm still emailing really, but I'm trying to solve these.
This goes back to certain things and this purchase that is no longer necessary for reasons and how do we go about this?
There are really specific rules, right? We don't have anybody from the federal OT.
Oh,
I didn't give her, these are funded. For equipment that's no longer needed, there's a.
How do they
there's a
dispose of-
disposal Protocol. So what I'm gonna say is get a hold of, Shelley Jackson, Jargo, and she will go over the disposal, requirements.
Shelley Jackson Doggery is the one to reach out to, and you have.
And have you heard back? She has not responded to your email?
Okay.
Alright, so I'm just gonna be right here making emails.
I have paper if you want to just write a list. I have some paper if you want to write a list.
Yeah, I know it, I don't have the spare time later, if I just do it right now.
On the spot,
Right.
on the spot news program here. All right, number two.
back.
Yeah.
So what we did is, with Madam's sometimes trying to define what can be functions and programs and what can go into the fund is kind of hard. And I've tried to do that little lookup thing, it never works. And I have a really hard time with that. So if that didn't work out, it would be great, but it doesn't work. So that was one of my frustrations, is trying to find out what can go and what. So sometimes I can get, upload it, see if it works, upload it, make it again, and see what will work. So that's one of my frustrations. Yeah, a long list of EO exceptions that I'm like, wait, I've done exactly the same for 6 years, and now all of a sudden they're not allowed to be, they're not used because they're, like, for example, a school counselor, and we've always put that a third of them is working with special ed because a third of our staff, our kids are special ed in that school. So now it's saying you can't do that, so I'm confused because they're not really a special ed working with them, they're gonna work with them. So how do you do that? How they're not getting paid by special ed. They're really paid by people.
So, those are great questions. I'm gonna answer the second one first. So what you're talking about, many of you may have received an email from Charlotte Ellis this week. And it's about the fact that NDO staff, after you put in a staff member, there's two levels. There's either they are not applicable, which means they are regular education staff, or they're special ed staff. One or the other has been for years. That have been up to two options. The reason for that separation there is EPS funding, okay? And other reasons, reporting as well. So there's federal, there's state, there's reporting, and there's funding. Funding, for all of you who aren't familiar with the 8279, call me after this meeting because you need to be. That is your report of state funding. The way it works, page 1 of the calculation is what is the approximate cost of operating a school in your district for general education only. Page 1 staffing, those FTE student to staff ratios, never include any special ed staff. If they do, your funding is not being calculated properly, and that could be harming your funding levels. So, what we found out this year for the first time, and that's why it's I know you've been doing it this way forever, but I'm of the mind, just because we've been doing it this way doesn't mean it's always been right. The reason we know this year, because we have a better capacity to look at the individual level of staffing that you're getting, and we know this in the consistency. There's a second level of, enrollment's not the right word, it's in staff, there's a second level that says, hey, of this staff member, how much percentage are they working with special ed kids? Well, that means that ultimately there's a percentage of that staff member that shouldn't be included on the page 1 allocation, and it could be hurting you, especially ed techs and teachers, significantly. But also nurses and guidance. And so we said, well, we just learned this last week. We just found it for the first time. But we're like, well, let's try to help all these SAUs. Let's send them a list and see if there's any way that they can fix it on their end so that we help their funding calculation that we're about to do for FY27. This isn't telling you you can't do it. We're saying you shouldn't and you should correct it. So if you have a counselor who's 33% special ed, you need to enter them twice. One at the regular ed level at 66% or 67, and one at the special ed level, and that's going to help your funding calculations. Okay? But so again, we didn't notice it as an issue until this year. So we're reaching out now saying, you know, time short, we wanted you to be done by the 31st and certified. We're freezing on the 15th. So what can we do in this short period to try to help the SAUs to help their funding levels properly be done in the EPS formula? That's what that's about. So I am sorry. We are also working with the data team, collection team, to put in a way of fixing it for next year's collection so that you don't have to go in and do a split or whatever. We're not sure yet, but we're having conversations already to fix it for next year. That's what that is. That's something we became aware of, and we wanted to make it better for all of you. It may seem like it's, I'm kidding me, we can't do more. We've already done so much, I get it. But honestly, we're just trying to help. That's that one. The other one was about the coding. I'll make my way to Ida, who's the code master. But I will say this. We have, before she starts, we have an RFP that we are scoring for a new system for MES. Amen to that.
Yes. I was gonna say that. Sorry. That's totally fine, but that will take time. So whatever vendor we get, it'll take time. The system that we have has been our system since 2007. It's had, there have been various leadership changes and various people managing that. So it's been like the old farmhouse. People have added things, new codes, federal monies come, trying to make that easier. You're right, it's difficult because you have to do pairs, right? You have to go in there, propose it, sometimes it shows that it works, or there's an exception, sometimes it doesn't, they will upload it and we'll get an error. So we totally understand that. But, I mean, you're doing the right thing. So I'd like to say thank you for doing the right thing. Because sometimes we just get people who call and say, can you tell me how? And as much as we want to help, if you do some of the helping first, then we can follow up, and that would be great. So, but yes, I want to acknowledge your being painful for us. Any other questions? Please, this is what you're about that.
Yeah, I do too. This is great. Give us a hard one.
I don't know about it's hard. In this case, one of the challenges that I see too is that to go back a couple of years ago, things being back. But we get different responses. It doesn't make this super whether it's titles or the local investment. And I'm just curious why that is. Maybe it's just the local family people have it. That's not a problem. But it's also, just kind of being mindful of, well, we know that we're there, but we know title funds. So let's get that up front and make an increase. That's are currently very inconsistent. There are, maybe 2 program people at each of those giant fund programs now at the federal level, because so many of them, you can go their duties. And I do believe that each federal program has different expectations and requirements, which doesn't make any of this easy, I know. If you could suggest a way for us to be more supportive at our middle management level, getting stuff from the feds to you, we would be open to any and all ideas on how we can better support you, but it's true, we're noticing a lot of inconsistencies across the board.
I find it amazing that they're being exposed more than now.
I know, but maybe that's because the people are just, I think it might be all top level people, so all of the, I don't know, I know that, for example, at NCES, they run the date testing program, and there's 2 of them now, literally 2 humans, period, that are employed by NCES to manage the assessment. So it's hard to really pinpoint what the issue is, but I do think that each program area does end up having its own points of what they're going to pay attention to, and allow and all of that. Isn't universal? And everything in education, for those of you who have worked in different branches of government, local government, like the treasury funds from the versus the DOE funds that come out, like so little in terms of intimidating factors. If you guys were around when we sent out the money from that first batch of money in COVID, in summer of 2020, yep, that came straight from the Department of Treasury. That was easy, it was hard. It's hard to think it was hard for us to manage. But ultimately, thank goodness it wasn't like these other types of funds. But yeah, education seems to be, even DOL, Commissioner is telling me that the money they get from big labor is way less from big these little instances. And so I think it's just, they don't have a consistent federal funding protocol around those things.
They know, like, so we're much closer to, the taxpayers that fund the bulk of our budgets, and we're used to answering for everything one dime and expectation that central office will be a really part. And like that, so maybe they get away with it. Like people that get their funding from other sources won't tolerate this. But we're just used to that. Culture of minimal investment.
Yeah, I don't think that they understand who are the education funds. I know you are on this, and that it's a case of whether it's with the teachers, the administrators, the taxpayers, you're like right at ground zero. I do know that.
Does anyone have all on these 59 bill rates, when they come out?
Not to be wrong.
So. It's a magic 8 ball, okay? And usually I bring it with me, it's on my desk. I apologize, I didn't bring it today, but I did look at it yesterday, and it said it can't be determined. Sorry, truly though, honestly, I will explain this before, but I'll explain it again really quickly. The collections that we're doing right now, I have to have everybody's, I can't do individual SAUs. Before we can determine a bill rate, we have to have the entire cost of education. And so until these collections are complete, we're planning to freeze the data next Friday, or Saturday, the 15th. So work with us, let us help you, get it in, get it done. We're reviewing it now for inconsistencies, like we just talked about. We want it to work to the best of your ability. Our deal is, let's make this calculation be the best that it can be for everybody. That's the plan. So we're collecting all the data. Once we have all the data after the 15th, before Thanksgiving, hopefully, otherwise I have to cancel Thanksgiving. I've done it before. You know, the turkey will wait. Seriously though, we will try to do calculations by then so that we can have things for the Bureau budget. But then after we do our calculations, we have, as you know, so then the commissioner and I talk about how everything looks. Then we go up to the next level, in where the whole state budget has to be discussed. And then so on and so forth.
Do we know what the valuation has done statewide?
We do. Donna, do you have a sense of what the increase to the valuations was this last year statewide? Last year it was 8%, we thought. Right about 8% again overall. So we do have that done. But again, until we have everything calculated, which we can't do until we've done electing, there's really nothing. So again, we will release your ED 279s for FY 27 funding by February 1st. We have thankfully been able in the past few years to release them sooner than February 1st. We have never been after that.
100% of the time since 2019.
100% of the time since Commissioner Bacon has come in, we have been on time earlier. We will do it, we will release them as soon as we can in January, once they are complete, accurate, and ready. So I wish I could give you anything more than that. The magic 8 ball is not cooperating.
And if you're the person at your table whose district is holding everybody, I'm just kidding. Somebody in the room might be represented in that group.
We still have some financial, some student and some staff that are collecting, mainly because we've seen issues and we've sent it back and said, hey, this doesn't look right. And if it doesn't look right, it means your funding will be right. And so we are doing a lot of back and forth, a lot of individual emails. Charlotte has sent out probably over 400 emails in the last week about specific data points that look like they're really an issue, just to check. In some cases they are wrong and you're correcting them, and in other cases they're right, and that's fine. We're just making sure. So we are literally looking at individual data to try to make sure it's right.
Oh, would you have it updated for any, no part of the economic status or this?
Oh, I would say it gave me a hard one, didn't I? Economic status, economic disadvantage status for your students is a key factor in the calculation for EPS state funding. We have known for a while now that it is not an ideal way of determining, which is right now the definition in statute is those that qualify for the federal free or reduced lunch program. We are working with other state agencies. We've been working with MEPRID and the Education Policy Research Institute. Right now they are doing LP 318. It's reviewing certain components, including that one. We know the alternate form is not ideal, but we created it because the free reduced lunch form wasn't being filled out, and we still needed that because that's what's in statute to use. So we apologize. We're trying to find a way to do it that isn't going to require a collection at all from you. And so we don't have a clear path yet, but MaineASBO is doing a review and some analysis with us. And the report is due to the Ed Committee in January. And then the hope is that maybe by the end of session, there will be a new plan in place. That's the hope, the dream, if you will. And I know, like I said, it's not ideal. For one thing, two. I think everybody gets made We did look at what that cost. It would be an additional $40 million. Well, I get it. I haven't been able to, I get what you're saying, I haven't been able to get into the funding. I understand, I get it, I wish we could do that, and, you know, maybe that's something, bring it up to legislators, it's all statutorily driven.
And speaking of the legislators, in the upcoming session, there's going to be a presentation of a report by Macri on the EPS formula. That would be a great time for you all to be in our team will keep you posted on when that's going to be happening. You could write individual emails, you could show up and testify in person about how the formula currently impacts you, because here's what I've noticed in my time in this role. I think 3 times we've had a legislative Macri type report or department report on how is the formula working, what's wrong with it, what's working well, where are the points of inequity, and that is where we see most of the problem. I know that a recent, I think Forbes, one of those ratings, showed that Maine rated in an A category for the sufficiency, the amount of state funding going to local communities, but compared to the nation, we did a pretty decent job making enough money available, and we got like a network team on the equity of distribution of those funds. And so when the reports, this is what I've seen happen, when reports are made, there are some recommendations made, and then usually the legislators who hear the reports and to be sitting in communities who have elected them to these positions, who are directly advantaged by the current status quo. And it is suddenly, I mean, they all want to know how to change the formula and make it better. And when they get the news, it's very difficult for the legislature to make a case to disadvantage their own team up there in their communities. And so I've seen that happen at least 3 times in the sessions that we've had. But I do think your voices would make a difference, because when publicly there are attestations by the humans who use the formula every day to try and keep their systems afloat, your voice would carry a lot of weight. Your individual voice is more powerful even than a collective written by the president of your organization, although that's not a bad thing either. But they'll literally count the number of emails they get, they can almost say some of them and say the same thing. Some of them would. So really, it ends up being, there's winners and losers. And so, but it might be very important for you to pay close attention, because this would be the time to do it. There's also going to be a report in this upcoming legislative session on school construction and how that works. There's been a commission at work for, I think it will be a year, practically a year, when they deliver their report to the legislators. And they have some really interesting box ideas. And then there are other bills happening that there are proposed changes to the way in which the school construction funding works. And so those are things for you to pay close attention to going forward. And your voice does matter a lot.
Yeah, so I just want to add on, and I've said this before, just like the commissioner just said, your voice does matter. So I know that MaineASBO tends to send you out a list of LDs, bills that are coming up and when they're being heard. You can send testimony, you don't have to come in person, although in person is usually better. But if you can send testimony, get it on file, but your voice, your individual voice is important. My voice, believe it or not, isn't as important as your voice. The commissioner,
Like, not at all.
honestly, we try to do what we can for the whole state, but it's you that are at the level, you're facing the taxpayers. You're the ones that they need to hear from about some of these issues that need to be updated. And like the commissioner said, honestly, it really is difficult because when you change things, it's gonna help some areas, but it's gonna hurt others. And so it's really, they hesitate to make changes that are gonna hurt certain areas. And so it needs to be good for all, best for all. The other, so the commissioner mentioned the school construction commission. There's also a property tax commission that you should probably be paying attention to right now. And they are looking at all tax laws. It's tax overall, isn't it? I've been kind of watching them, but I haven't paid very close because we're busy capital news Monday. But yeah, I would picture that one as well, especially when they are open for public comment.
Do they include anyone from school?
They talk.
Finance?
I think
No.
they no, they haven't, but they've been talking to, the memory.
They've been talking to Memory about how the property tax impacts local. They haven't included us in the conversation, but we are paying attention to what they're doing, so hopefully if they would like our persuasion, they'll invite us. But you should also offer comment, because as you know, property tax is your only source of funding for local school budgets. And so.
And their meetings are public, they're all public meetings, and so.
You can sign up, I know, they actually, they emails, you can sign up for your meetings. I know this is been brought up before, but is there any work for the grants for me being able to put in invoices before the state is actually paid? That we get notified that things were approved, but then there's a lag between that and the wanting to be able to at least put things in, not submit, but at least sometimes they get back up.
So we have gone to the developer of Grants for Me several times in the last 3 years. They will not allow that to happen. They categorize it as bad business. However, I worked with the district yesterday and I got her to draft start invoices in Grants for Me. And that way, as soon as you're notified that you have been paid from the previous one that you submitted, you can go ahead and just put draft complete and it goes. And I know for us, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Tyra Corson. I work as the management analyst for the ESDA, all the title funding and school improvement funds. I know for us, we have recently, in the past 6 months, worked with our accounting department, state accounting, that was service in that. And we now have a schedule of when those invoices are going to be put into a status. So for us, for ESDA, school improvement, I don't want to be allocated any of those. If you are waiting for payment more than 2 weeks from the time I approve that invoice, please call me. That means it's stuck in the system somewhere. It's stuck in the system because they are on top of things. Like, wait, I am getting invoices paid within 2 days of my.
I don't get notified of pain, I get notified of people, but I don't get notified of pain. I have to keep going in and checking or waiting for the fact. It would be nice to have that second email that says, oh yeah, by the way, we now paid you. So you can go in, sometimes it takes a couple of days and the other takes around, we don't have any. So I don't tell Alan, I'm gonna talk to this.
Yeah. So this is my assumption, is that you're not listed in Advantage for the vendor code for your establishment, so for your payment. So that's why we're not, it's not a transfer fee notification that goes out, it goes out from Advantage, the state accounting system, because that's ultimately who is paying it.
Charlotte Ellis on my team is managing all of the updates to vendor codes for contacts, for addresses, for for doing ACH direct deposit. So reach out to Charlotte Ellis for any questions on who is the contact. And she will give you the forms to get that corrected. You weren't just waiting.
I'm close enough.
Oh.
It's probably the terrorism. In Lewiston, we do, I do, we have to go into that lab, when the invoice is in, submit it in there, it will not give me the option of anything else in my next. They're creative, if you want to be, yeah, yes, yeah. I want to look into that. I was working with yesterday. One thing I do want to keep in mind is each fiscal year grant. So right now, you have the opportunity to access funds for ESBA from FY 23, 24, 25, and 26. There's 4 open grants at this time. You can put in for the same title for each grant year at the same time. Okay? So a lot of people are doing that, they're trying to use up whole funds first, before moving on. There's some risks if you have a lot of old funds still there. There is a risk when you use that on, especially when it comes to Title I, there's, nuances there. So that, I do know, can happen and should happen. If you have, funds from each year.
She was saying she doesn't have the option to do a draft.
Right. Yeah. And so,
She would have said you could set up a draft session, but she doesn't have that option.
right. Because, so yesterday when I was working with that district, I was working with different product, and I was looking at all at the same time.
First of all, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for coming today, but specifically to the DOE finance team department. I think your collaboration with our organization during my tenure as president, as well as individual business managers in this department across the state, has been a marked difference from 10 or 20 years ago. So that is my thank you and appreciation personally as well as on behalf of MaineASBO. I think SBA has done different evaluations over the years. I think it's sort of groups do evaluations. I think we are in a different era, in my opinion, than we've ever been in recent history. In recent history, the public is much more engaged about what's happening in the schools, whether it's financial or not. I'm speaking specifically financial. And I think the formula may have a great for some categories, but I also think it is lacking in the other areas. Whether that's the formula or the way the state funds schools, whether it's through the department or another means, I'm specifically talking about property evaluation versus median income. Whether that belongs in the formula or not, what we're seeing, at least in my district, and a lot of my colleagues, is valuation of the house significantly in the past 3 to 5 years. Where in each state, enrollment is shrinking. And what we receive in physical dollars in our checkbook in our school district is not keeping up. Our costs are not actually up. But in my opinion, a lot of what is being said in public is school costs are rising significantly. So that's why your taxes are going up. And as a result of that, and I know this is long-winded, but I think it's important. As a result of that, a lot of the public is getting engaged saying it's the school's fault that your taxes are going up so much. This is more a statement than a question But at some point, at some level, whether that's legislative, Department of Ed, us as finance, both superintendents or school board, there needs to be a collaborative effort to really look at all aspects of not just the formula, but how is median income or some other legislative action to give money back from state funds to towns. Because folks our agent might have $1 million property, but their social security income is $30,000. That is what we're seeing in the trenches. And I fear for my district as well as others, that this is not the first or last year of struggles with getting budgets to be passed. So thank you for listening.
And I think everyone here agrees and sees that even though there was that compelling study to say that property valuation is the most equitable way in which to determine ability to pay, was in 2014, was it? At least, property valuation has nationwide, land here in Maine, become far more volatile. And it used to not be volatile when that study was done. And I know that well, first of all, our team has struggled honestly to get local tax information from the state revenue services. Being glad to know they are extremely careful stewards of but we have been working on, I know that they've at least looked at, right, a way in which it could be property value until it hits a tipping point where it's so disparate from the actual real ability for people to pay based on income, then it's something else big in. I don't know if that is making it into their report or recommendations. Somebody's been with finance.
Yeah, they're definitely looking at it, we're trying to see, I think the other aspect of that is the funding formula it's a great instrument for what it does, but it's one instrument, so it's not gonna target your individual, like the tax needs of your individual taxpayers, and that's why I would say, listening to that the commission, because they are interested. They have heard that education is, slamming the property tax bill, and that's why I think it is important that you start listening in, or even as a group, to say where can we provide examples. But Nepri has been, we with Nepri have been looking at ways to see how to incorporate it. As Commissioner had said, we've made several attempts to try to get the taxpayer data so we could see how it might affect the formula, and as Commissioner Mason said, they're very good stewards to protecting our data, but we're still working on it, so don't give up hope.
And honestly, I'm just surprised that education is not formally involved in the municipal property tax. My phone's probably going to be on the table and it's reading. That's it. I think it would be really great for somebody to reach out directly to them and say, hey, education should be officially part of this conversation. It's awesome.
And to piggyback on Collins and our community specifically, it's not the overall spending, it's the fact that the commercial properties are flat while the residential ones. So a shift of taxpayer responsibility, that business and went to the homeowners. And then is the state and how they calculate what is available for a homestead exemption, is that in that discussion that you talked about in the 79?
Not in the, it'll be in the conversation in this commission.
So the homestead exemption is completely outside the formula, has nothing to do with how we calculate funding. However, I would suggest, as you contact the tax commission, you suggest perhaps another type of exemption could help in these particular times of increased home valuations and decreased business value, or not increased business valuations, because right now, formula, yeah, as I mentioned, doesn't hit the individual level, it does the whole community as a whole. And so as a whole, we probably do have a few high-level homes that are increasing your ability to contribute in the formula. And we really don't have the ability to look at the granular level and the formula. However, the granular level can be reached in something similar to a homestead exemption for those that would qualify. And until we find a better way of determining the ability to contribute, that really, I think, would be the best way. But we work with the ed committee, the taxation committee directly. And so things like that would need to come through taxation, which this commission is a direct opportunity to have those conversations. Also, Nick really is looking at some other ways. One of the things that they are looking at, and I'll just share this with you, is considering perhaps adding a different level of a ability to pay no expectation based on economic disadvantaged percentages. That's a thought, right? So that's something we're looking into. So pay attention to the reports coming out because there are some really neat ideas, I think, that need to be considered.
I think the other component that I would just like to really be clear, we get evaluation data, we get a number. We're not going to factor into how it's calculated. However, a couple of years ago, the gentleman that does help calculate that gave a presentation to the ed committee. So what we can do, we'll find it and we'll send it to the ASBO president and have you redistribute it because it was really worth. It was about an hour presentation. It is kind of complex and will drive, but it was powerful information. I think
It's how they determine the valuation for your town at Maine Revenue Service. We don't touch that, but.
And that is one of the complaints we have, one of the selectmen, one of my towns is pretty involved at the state level. And that's a significant complaint that their complaint is tax amendment looks readily available. Why is some of the education formula utilizing what the actual tax assessment values are in each town in the state instead of using the Revenue Services state determined amount? And that creates a real point of contention when you're down in the weeds at public meetings. Going, I don't control that for the town. But they want explanations to that because if that information is available, why aren't we using that for state revenue services?
I absolutely thought for sure that is what they use to calculate it. That's shocking.
So
I thought that's how they came up with the statewide valuation.
yeah, apparently it's not, and honestly, I haven't looked closely at that, but that's an interesting thought, Colin, I had never considered. It's a different way of collecting. It's about getting the data. So what you're suggesting is a different way of collecting information that we would use in the formula for the town valuation, which is a whole new study in and of itself, which I didn't even ever consider that as an option. But
Because then that's one less thing we have to argue with towns about as to why are we using one set of data?
okay,
The towns which are assessing tax bill are using a different set of data.
yeah, that's a little bit of
yeah, problem with that is that data is not, it would have to be collected at each town. There's no one going
time revenue.
yeah, so that's not, and that's why I think in Maine revenue it hasn't been mentioned to us, but I think we've looked into it, the research team has looked into how would we get the actual data because of the business property tax, which makes the distinguish, it's been super hard to get, it's like.
Which is interesting because it's on every town's website, the tax bill.
well, I can't go to every town's website.
Talk about mistake. Whoever's collecting them, I look at our 6 towns that make up our school district every year. Because part of what I'm preparing for when I go to meetings is, hey, your tax commitment assessment went up by 8% or 4% or whatever it went up. That's real live raw data that they're using to send out tax returns.
I don't think like these recommendations that I have on their website, I'm just saying. But I am intrigued by the offer that I hadn't thought about before, I guess I missed that study, but I'm intrigued. These are great ideas. Now we need to figure out a way to support and review them and find a way of collecting the data that is equitable around the state.
And also that wouldn't create a barrier when you think that the October 1st data that comes into every school or that every school is, then sending to the department, getting that number takes almost 2 months. From all of the school districts, if we had to then hit up every municipality for their most recent, valuation, and they weren't like, one foot dragging little municipality that had a part-time person on Tuesdays, or something. All of your ED 279 stuff is on, maybe there's a way, make this.
Yeah, the other question that I have is just every time we do it the same way, because it would have to be equitable. That's the other question I have, and I just don't know the answer.
They're gonna do reevaluations at different times, but again, that's what they want out of it, everything's tax goes to us in this room, whatever community we live in.
Yeah.
That's what our tax bill is basically.
Well, that's a great idea to look into. Yeah. Are we out of time? I think we're out of time.
Can I just say thank you? All right, thank you to July, but mostly thank you for every single thing. And appreciate your very much. There are very few humans who do what you're doing. We are here to help. Don't forget to reach out. Don't suffer through a problem and talk about it, like how awful and non-responsive. Reach out to us and we will 100% do everything we can to support our work. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna have a brief, Ava Trina from Siemens is gonna come speak to us before we go into our break. Our break is going to be, mingling with our vendors, having something to drink possibly, and then we'll go into our business meeting around 11:50. So we've got about 45 minutes after we hear from Ava. Hey, can you guys hear me? Good, good, okay. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Good. Happy Friday. My name is Ava Trina. I work for Siemens. I worked for them about 6-7 years. So I know you all love spreadsheets. So I made this presentation. I have at least 100 tabs I figured we could go through. Now, listen, jokes aside, I don't want to take too much time up here. This morning, when I was getting ready, I was thinking about what I was going to say, and it's totally different than what my original plan was, so bear with me. So that was it, when I was thinking earlier today, like what's something that people connect to, right? It's typically stories. And when I tell you the story, when I tell you the story, I want you to kind of relate it to Siemens as a whole. Some of you may have worked with us, some of you may not have. We've been in business for a very, very long time. So even if it was working with me or working with my friend Ryan in the back, who used to be a mechanic and now is in sales and me, you probably worked with one of our colleagues. So, it's fall, right? Thanksgiving is in a couple weeks. Football's just kicked off. It's starting to get cold and cozy. And one of my favorite things to do during this time of year is watch movies. And my favorite movie is The Blind Side. The Raise Your Hand show. Has anyone seen that movie? Yeah, quite a few of you. So the reason I bring this movie up is, well, for those of you that haven't seen it or maybe saw it a long time ago, don't remember the plot. It's about this young man that starts school in kind of an affluent area, I guess is what I would say. He goes to a private school, he doesn't really fit in, right? He's brand new, doesn't really make any friends, and there's a family that lives in the community and sees him walking on the street. And it's cold, it's November like today, and the mom, her name is Leanne, of his family, says to her husband, "Can you pull over? You know, I want to talk to this guy. I feel bad. I've seen him around, and you know, I just want to make sure it's okay." So they pull over, and she hops out of the car, and she says, "Your name is Michael, right?" And he says, "Yeah." She says, "Well, what are you doing out here in the cold?" And he says, "Well, you know, I'm just coming back from the gym." She asks me, "Do you have any business day tonight?" And he just kind of looks at her, and she says, "Don't you dare lie to me." And she shakes his head no, and she looks back at her husband, and she says to him, "Come on, hop in the car." He comes back home with them and stays with them for a few months, and you know, as their time progresses, he starts to trust them, and you know, school's getting a little bit better, a little bit easier, starting to make some friends through his found siblings, if you will, from their family, and you know, all the way through his growing up, the teachers previously just gave him C's and passed him along, so you know, that was the next person's problem, right? And this family really brought him in and said, you know, we want to make a difference. How can we help this guy? So they his grades begin to come up, and they sign him up for spring football. And he's never played sports before in his life. He's not really good at school. And when he starts practice, he doesn't really get it. And you know, the coaches are screaming and hollering at him, and it's just not computing. And Mom, Leanne, comes over, or actually watches practice and hops on the field and taps the coach, and it's like, I got this, give me a sec. So she goes over to Michael and she says, "Michael, this team is your family. And your job is to protect the quarterback. I'm the quarterback in this situation, okay? You're protecting me." And after she gives like a anecdote that he can understand at his level, he nails it, right? He's a lineman, so he tackles and he protects his quarterback, and his quarterback throws the ball and plays complete and works. And the point of this kind of cute little story, I mean, it's blown up in the press in the last few years, so you know, that aside, just take it for the story itself. What I want you to walk away with from this quick little presentation is that Siemens is who is going to protect your blind side. Siemens is who is going to have your back, and Siemens is your family. And you know, even if you've never worked with us before, just a few things. If your boiler goes down, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, it's freezing. The people you're going to call is probably us, and we'll be there in 30 minutes. And we're doing that so that we can troubleshoot, and then you don't have to leave the school. You have, on the business side, you have a school budget committee meeting on Wednesday of next week, and it's Friday, and it's 5 o'clock at night, and we've developed this beautiful project, but something still doesn't make sense. They're complicated, right? There's energy savings, there's rebates, incentives, operational savings, it's all a lot to keep straight. 5 o'clock, we're gonna call us to help you better understand it, so you can get that packet out to your budget committee ahead of time, so they have the weekend to review it. So again, I'm not trying to take a ton of time. I have my name up here, Eva Trina, and my colleague Brian with the time in the back. But we have some swag. I'd love for you to stop by and just catch up. I'm not here to sell you anything either, so I would love to save some money if we have the opportunity to.
But, yeah, we're here, we're usually always here, we're your family, we have your back, and we're, always trying to protect your blind side. So, thank you. All right, everybody, we have a break until about 11:15. Go.
Hey, folks. We're gonna adapt the agenda just a little bit. Lunch is ready. We're gonna do the business meeting really, really quick. If there are pressing issues, we certainly can continue. But I think for the most part, we're just gonna go quickly through, get the business meeting done so we can get lunch going. The students have done a great job. We want to thank them and really like them for today. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the September 19th meeting? Thank you, Sherry. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll take Bridget on that one. Any discussion? Everybody's happy? Raise your hands if you vote yes. Raise your hand if you vote no. Raise your hand if you say, I don't care. Paula, thank you. Paula doesn't care, that's approved. Treasurer's report went out. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Thank you, Zach. Second? I'll go with Cheryl. All who don't care whether we approve it or not, raise your hand. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you very much. Committee reports. You want to do committee?
We're gonna have Adam Hansen do a really quick Amazon plug.
Hi, so you may have seen the email I sent out yesterday. I've actually been working for a few months with Amazon to set up with Great Falls Regional Service Center, Lewiston is part of, to offer a discounted Amazon pricing for all school districts in Maine. And Henry Pyle is here from Amazon, so I just thought I'd give him a minute to introduce himself and answer any questions you might have.
I think Adam already introduced me, but that's okay. I'll do it again. My name is Henry Pyle. I'm with Amazon. I live in Livermore Falls. Shout out RSU 73. All right. Yeah, so you can reach me at hpile, P-I-L-E, at Amazon.com. Please don't all email me, but if you need something to do, I can help you. And we're going to set you guys up with free business product, okay? That's kind of it. I don't know if it was. If you're going to have questions, we're going to have answers. Just email me and I'll do what I can help. That's it.
Here you go. Yeah. That's it. So I think it's a really cool opportunity for everybody. You know, a lot of people in the cities are trying and things like squeeze that into the budget. Hopefully this is an opportunity for everyone. We're glad to help our group.
Thank you, Adam. A sincere thank you to all of our vendors and sponsors for today. Part of our goal in keeping membership dues down as much as possible is really build vendor relationships. They have been excellent. They have been very supportive. They will be here until after lunch and up until we start the afternoon session. So as lunch is going on, please support them. They have swag. They really want to give away this swag. They don't want to bring it back home. But spend some time to talk to them and really support them because they support us and we really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Next, Sherry, we're going to go over some lunch and learn topics and other things that we need from you as members.
Okay, so we are still working on Lunch and Learn, and I know that a lot of you really do enjoy the Lunch and Learn topics. So I'm just hoping if you could reach out to me or any of the board members actually for any lunch or dinner topics that you'd like us to do, and we will get moving on those. The professional development committee is planning on meeting in the next couple of weeks. And, your input on lunch and learn would be awesome, as well as any future meeting topics. We still have February and our April meetings. We're working on the agenda for those now. So if you have anything you want to see or any specific people to attend the meetings, just give us a shout out, shoot us an email. I think you know how to reach most of us. Okay, I'm gonna give it back to Colin.
So for topics, lunch and learn, if you're new to our organization, our hour-long remote sessions, via Zoom or Google Meet. I'll say it every single meeting, this is your organization, it's not Sherry's, it's not mine, it's not the board's. We're here just to do the work that you want done. So if you give us nothing, we will give you nothing. No, we really will come out with something, like, it may not be what you want. So seriously, put some thought into it, outreach to us. Tri-State, how many in this room, raise your hand, have been to Tri-State within the past 5 years? At least once. How many have not? I challenge you to take 2.5 or 3 days, this year it'll be 3 days, and go to Burlington, Vermont. If you go to Burlington, Vermont, I will buy you personally, out of my own funds, either an appetizer or a drink of your choice, out of my own personal funds. I think it's that valuable and that important. The networking, the connections, the relationships, and the learning. You can't be away from the office for 3 days. Bill, I shouldn't have said that. Bill Simon said I really shouldn't have said that. A lot for it's so it is saying but seriously, really, really put in the time to plan those 3 days in May. I know it's a tough time of the year, but it will be really worth it. Dave Holden, there are several of us in this room who have received the Dave Holden Award. It is touching. It is emotional, at least for me, to have received it. It really validates the work we do. There is someone in this room or in our organization who's going above and beyond to support school finance in either the own district or across the state. Nominations for that will open over the winter. We will send out communication on that. There will be an evaluation team, and that will be awarded in April. If you have someone who you feel deserves that recognition, when that opens, please send out and support those individuals and nominate them. It hangs on the wall in my office. I look at it every single day. It means that someone cared about the work I did and validated that work. And that's what we all want, right? We want to feel validated. And it's important. It's important we recognize each other for what we do. So please take consideration when that comes out. You want to talk about groups just quickly across the state and then any new business?
Yep. I just wanted to mention, I've been in touch with Natasha Winslow. She's starting up a new Northern Maine regional group. I think she said she was in Dyer Brook. Not sure where that is, but anyway.
You want to tell us where it is?
I'm sure that there's people in this room that knows exactly where it is. But anyways, Natasha, we're gonna be putting out her contact information. She's just looking for membership from the county or even below the county, I'm sure, that are interested in joining her group. I wanted to mention, I talked to Barbara Brindle, who may be here. Barbara, okay. So your group is still active. And you call yourself Penquist, correct? I'm sorry?
Roswell.
Oh, okay, great. So your contact information will be in our newsletter so that people can reach out if they want to join your group as well. I was in touch with Cynthia Potenza. There is a large group down, basically southern Maine, but I believe that they don't care where you're from. And they meet every other week, and they have a lot of awesome topics.
They had Deb Roberts at their last meeting. So if you're interested in that group, we'll have Cynthia's contact information going out in our next newsletter. As far as software support groups, Jamie Youngblood, are you here? Jamie, are you still doing your group? Oh, okay. What? You're in the same group?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you had a separate software, no? Independent Visions, okay, thank you. And then, I have the Active Fund Software Support Group as well, and we're meeting roughly once a month. So that's it for support groups, unless there's one I'm missing. Is there anybody here that's in a group that I didn't mention? I know Eastern Maine was gonna look into doing something, and I haven't heard whether they actually started.
And if you want to start a group,
Yes.
just let us know so we can help coordinate with you. We're not trying to manage it or oversee it. We're just trying to spread the word. So if you want to start something in your area, which is how the Southern Maine group started, just let us know and let us know how we can help communicate that for you. We have no intention of managing it for you or overseeing it. We just want to collaborate with you on it. That Southern Maine group, by the way, does a lot of HR and payroll stuff. So it's a lot of non-business managers who are a part of that group. So if that's of interest to you, no matter where you are in the state, connect with that group, because that is probably the most centric payroll HR group that I know about in the state.
Okay. Do we have any new business to be brought up today? Zach?
We're gonna set our dues for the next year, so getting close to budget time.
The question is, are we going to set dues? The board needs to mean they will be doing that between now and probably the end of the calendar year in order to have that discussion, but the board needs to have that discussion first. And we need to review where we stand so far this year with both membership as well as vendor membership.
All right.
If there's ever questions, email Sherry, myself. If you email Mike, please include either Sherry and or myself in those emails, just so communication makes the full circle. Any other comments, questions? If not, can everybody hear me, or am I too soft? It's 11:30. We're gonna try to do this in probably about an hour. Vendors are gonna stay here. We're gonna start the afternoon session after lunch. I think an hour probably gives everyone time to do that, visit the vendors some more. Is that okay?
Yeah, and Matt from DeVivo, after we get seated at our open lunch, Matt's gonna just do a brief talk to us.
One last time, thank all of you for coming today and your input, especially with DOE this morning. It's very valuable. And one last time, I want to thank the young folks from the Greenway for all that you do and for serving us today. You are an inspiration to all of us, and I want to personally thank you for allowing us to be here today and to sharing what you provided for us. So thank you very much. Time for lunch.
They're going to call us by tables, so these ladies will be. I have Jeff Yeager, energy management consultant, who's going to do a little bit of a talk before we go into our last presentation.
All right, thank you. I just have a quick 42 slide deck here, so. I got that sweet spot right after lunch before everybody gets tired, so I appreciate a couple of seconds here. Again, Jeff Yeager, Energy Management Consultants. We're a turnkey energy and consulting company. We're at Portland, Maine. We manage projects that lead with energy savings. So we can touch anything in your school, anything from VRF to LED lights, HVAC boiler upgrades, weatherization, roofing insulation, EV chargers. We'll touch it all, but we're going to lead with things that will help save energy, to use the cost of the savings on your energy bills to help pay for the project itself. We've got kind of a unique process about how we go about it as a consulting firm, not a sales firm. We're just here to provide information. We know that part of the struggle that you have is the community and the taxpayers knowing where their money's going. We have a process that's completely transparent. We show you all the bids that we use. We'll do the bidding for you if you'd like. We'll do the audits, but we show you right down to what we make from the project. Every single dollar that's spent, your community will know what it is. And that's an easy story to tell. Ultimately, we're trying to help you tell a story because you have to sit in front of your boards, in front of your community, and tell me a story for every dollar that goes out. We're here to help you with that. We know, anybody here have the capital improvement plan? Show of hands, a couple people. Anybody have that plan on a pre-written binder sitting on a shelf someplace? Our job is to take it from concept through the bidding process, all the way to completion. We will be the GC for you, we'll hold the retention money for you, and we'll do all the follow-up to make sure that the scope of that project is completed. There are kind of two ways that we see people do the project, bonds or tax exempt lease purchases. There are positives and negatives to both. We'll work any way you'd like us. But ultimately, it's a process that we like, it's a process that we think works, and it's a process that's pretty risk-free from your end. If we miss something on the engineering side, we don't change it. It's on us. So we make sure that the price we give you is the price you pay. Ultimately, let's be honest with you. We love our process so much that my boss looked at me and was like, yeah, you'll be able to fix it. Don't just people. You know. So it is a good process. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, if you have projects in your schools that you know need to be done and you're not certain how to do them, come talk to me. Maybe we can get creative. We work, right now we're working Hodgson to Kittery. We cover the whole state, most of the state. Yeah. I mean, we're in the county. Sorry. Yeah, I'll be in the back. I'll stick around a little bit, but please feel free to come grab a mug or grab a card or just have a conversation and say hi. Thank you.
Okay, our next up is Paula and her team, and it's gonna take a couple minutes to get the slideshow set up, but we'll start in a couple minutes. Yes. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me again. So I'm Paula Rowell, the Director of Public School Funding for the Big Project Education. And the afternoon session is going to be discussing the CDS grade transition for pre-K special education students. Now, this is not my team here, okay? This is a department team, and so we have a few people here that are part of a bigger team to help with some questions, and then we go through a quick PowerPoint. The one person who's joining us soon, she was still on the older schedule, we're going a little bit earlier, but that's okay, she'll be here soon. It'll give me time to go through the PowerPoint, you can think of questions. But also we have Kim Hall, she introduced herself earlier, I'll let her say again quickly.
Hi, I'm still new. Kimberly Hall, Education Data Assistant Manager for the DOE and
Recovering business manager.
Recovery Business Manager. Hi, I'm Hopkins, and I'm the program manager for Early Special Education.
So, I'm just gonna go quickly through this PowerPoint, and explain to you about, sorry.
You want me doing now?
It
I
wa-
thought I was on the second part. I'm on the part.
Well, I'm just doing this presentation, so you can, introduce yourself and then we'll
I'll
go.
introduce myself.
Yeah,
Cheryl Fournier, I'm the Sanford School Department, also board member, and I'm talking about mostly the pre-K partnership. And so I am here to talk about being on the other side.
thank you, Cheryl. So there's a couple parts to this. There's the pre-K special ed. And there's also the pre-K partnership for non-special ed. And so there's a couple things that we're kind of merging into one. So we'll try to keep in mind the two different discussions. One thing I just want, so we'll start with the transition. And I know that for many of the SAUs out there, the business manager is included in the conversation from the beginning. We've been trying to tell them to always include the business manager because funding is key, and this is funded very, very differently from most regular programs, okay? So, I'm just gonna, why are we doing this? Well, the transition of child find and state responsibilities to SAUs in the recent past, it's always been CDS, Child Development Services, that manages that, manage that. I'm gonna tell you up front, I am not a special education program expert. I am learning this now because of my involvement with the funding portion. So if I say something wrong, I would appreciate if one of you would tell me to stop and fix me, okay? Or anybody for that matter. So we all know that CDS has been unable, for many reasons, not because they're not doing their job, but because they haven't had the capacity to provide the services to all the children that are pre-K, 3 to 5 year olds with special education needs. And so a couple of years ago, legislation was passed in the budget bill under LD 2214 that is transferring the requirement for the responsibility of the FAPE transition, the responsibility of FAPE and special education services with 3, 4, and 5 year olds that have an IEP and child fund to school administrative units. There's a transition period that is starting, it started 2 years ago with the first cohort, but by 2028, every SAU is going to be required to be part of this program. The transition, I've heard this thought, the transition doesn't mean that by the end of the transition, the funding is going to change. The funding is going to stay the way it's set up, and I'll explain it in a few minutes, until the law has changed. So that funding, and I'll just give you a sneak peek, is 100% funded from the state. There is no local share, which all of you can imagine what that means. It means you need to keep it separate from our EPS, right? Because EPS has a local share. This is not EPS. This is completely separate. So we collect counts for this transition, these pre-K special ed students. We're not doing it once a year. We're doing it 4 times a year. Why? Well, here's something I learned. Students become eligible anytime throughout the year whenever they turn 3. And so we need to be able to capture the fact that you are going to have additional students that may be eligible more often than once a year for funding purposes. So we are doing a collection quarterly. July 1, October 1, January 1, April 1. you are entering these enrollments into the state information system, which is at this time Synergy. It will be transferring to Connect. That's where Kim Hall comes in. You are also at this time providing us the information for the calculation on spreadsheet. We're working to change that by next year's collection, hopefully, by year 3, which will start next July. In the meantime, it's important that you do both. If you're in the cohort, a collection on a spreadsheet that goes to Jen Hawkins and Kim Hall, and then they review it and give it to me for calculation of funding. You also do need to enter them into the student information system. Many of these students will not have a state ID yet, but they will get one, and that will start. These are 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in pre-K with an IEP, as well as those that are in child fund. Child fund also happens on a regular basis throughout the year. We are providing funding to assist with the evaluation needed for a child that has been referred. But the funding also, before we can provide that funding, which is $1,000 per child at this time, that may change in the future as we reevaluate the costs associated with these evaluations. Because remember, I just said a minute ago that everything's 100% funded. The expectation is that you will not have to provide local funding for any student that is 3, 4, or 5 years old enrolled in pre-K. Okay? That's the expectation, that's the intention. So, the funding for child funds occurs once you have a referral and you've received the parent, parental, or guardian consent, signed consent to evaluate. You haven't done the evaluation yet, so you don't know if they have an IEP, so they're not gonna get the regular funding, but you are going to get $1,000 towards the evaluation. Once the evaluation is complete, if they have an IEP, you'll add them to the next quarter count. If they don't, you don't have them, you only get the evaluation funding one time. Minimum required data elements for the enrollment record. Kim, can you just make sure that these are accurate? I'm not going to read them all. This is going to be provided to you. Everything on here is what you need to put a record into the state information, student information system in order to get them enrolled. We've noticed lately with the collection, sometimes you don't have all the information you need to put them into the information system, and we still need the quarterly count so that we can calculate funding. So we ask you to at least put them on the spreadsheet and update the information system as soon as you can, okay? Attendance for off-site students, for students who are not physically attending your school, because you are having a partnership with an outside agency that is providing the actual program. You would create a special class on your local SIS and record attendance as present remote. You do not have to remember all this and just kind of quickly going through the enrollments. That's what Ken's for. She's your expert. This is the stuff that we want to really understand. How does the funding work? Is it a reimbursement model? No, it's not a reimbursement model. It is not a grant where you have to spend the money first and then get reimbursed. No. It's also not the same model as EPS, where for the year we calculate funding and there's no give or take anymore. It is kind of a hybrid model. Every quarter, we will take the counts that you've provided to us. We will calculate it based on a formula that we've determined. Again, we're still reviewing if it's accurate or not. It uses some of the same aspects in the EPS formula. For instance, all of you have an individual, Michelle, good morning. No, it's fine. Michelle Belanger. I'll just let you introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, I am Michelle Belander. I am the pre-K partnership specialist on the early learning team at the DOE. So I support partnerships in community-based classrooms and SAUs.
And she's here for questions related to both what I'm talking about with pre-K special ed as well as pre-K partnership and non-special ed, okay? So the funding is a hybrid model where we calculate funding based on the counts. And we use your individual SAU's EPS rate, elementary rate from the year's allocation. So your 8279 this year for FY 26, whatever your SAU's EPS elementary rate is, that is the multiplier we use for calculating funding. So each one of you will have a different allocation of funds based on your EPS rate that we calculate and for EPS. Again, this is not EPS, but we are using some of the same formula elements that we use in EPS. So far, it seems to have worked for the first year. Let me explain what I mean by that. We take all of the information on page 2, every line of 279 that's pre-K, economic disadvantaged, multilingual learner, the additional allocation of 0.10, I think it is, on the bottom line. We take each of those and we use them as a factor in your allocation of funding for these counts. That's basically the general ed FAPE portion of the funding allocation. Then we also add the special ed. Here's the difference between how we do the special ed for this compared to how we do it for EPS. We take the number of students times the EPS rate times 0.15 for all the students. It isn't limited to 15% of the total special ed like EPS is, okay? So you get a 0.15 factor increase for all the students for special ed services, not just those up to a certain percentage like EPS, okay? So basically, that is how we determine an allocation of funding. Now, we understand that there are some students that have IEPs that are going to need more services, but there are probably also those that are going to need less services. The hope is that the total formula allocation will cover the cost for all of those, whether they're higher needs or lower needs. That's the hope. That works for year 1. We didn't have any student, any SAU that needed more than what we allocated. However, if they did, we asked for quarterly trial balances and uploads into, you're gonna need me saying this. What's it called? Grants for me. However, remember, this is not a reimbursement model. This is just where we're asking you to upload the files because it's a familiar system, okay? It's not a grant, it's not a reimbursement model, but every quarter we need you to upload your files, your trial balance into Grants for Me. Barb McGowan and her team look it over. You're also being asked to upload quarterly into MAPS your quarterly files, your expenditures, your revenues. There is a separate expenditure and revenue and fund code for this particular program. You have to use it for every expense and every revenue source. You have to, and you have to keep it separate and outside of EPS and general fund. It is not general fund. Yes?
You have to do a separate upload that's in your file.
No, you should not have to do a separate upload. Right, Ida? Correct. Thank you. In fact, we want all of your files uploaded quarterly. This one is required. Why is it required? Because every quarter, we're reviewing what you spent compared to what we allocated of funding for that quarter. And if you're spending more than we're allocating, we're gonna give you more money to make sure you're at 100% in this year, in this quarter. It's 100% state funded, you can never have to fund it with any other source. But we can't do that when you're not collecting your data and know what you're spending. That being said, you can't go buy the top of the line limousine service for your students for transportation. Sorry.
Look at me.
We will be looking at all of your expenditures and determining if they're reasonable and necessary. So just use common sense. Is it reasonable? Is it necessary? Is it in the IEP? That's really the key to look at, that we'll be looking at. Now, if you need more, if you have a high cost out of district placement, we're gonna give you what you need. That's the statute. And no, it's not gonna change. That is what is in statute for how we fund it. Going forward, until statute changes, that is the funding formula. Outside EPS, not the same. 100% funded, not local. But we can't do it without you communicating and giving us the data every quarter. Why? So that's why the business manager needs to know what's going on. But you need to be able to set this up. We have a chart of accounts set up. There's a fund code, there's a revenue code, it's all available. You can get set up now, even if you're not gonna be in a cohort until next year or year 4. Year 4, you have no choice, you have to join. So these are the people to reach out to with questions. When we collect the quarterly counts, we usually try to collect them by the end of the first or second week of the quarter. And then I try to get the payments out by the third week of the quarter. So we're paying you in the first month of the quarter for that quarter. And then the next quarter. So we're giving you upfront money for the quarter, not monthly, quarterly. If you need more, for whatever reason, reach out and we'll help you. But you need to provide the material documentation to show why. Okay? So please assure your boards, this is not going to cost you more money. Yeah. If you're not set up with a pre-K program yet, that's where there are other areas of funding available right now outside of this that can help set up. And that's where other people, Sandy can help you, Jen and her company, Sandy can help with that. So there are other sources of funding to help set things up like bathrooms and stuff. Okay? You all don't look too scared. Although some of you are sure you. Yes. So, here's the status update so far for year 1 cohort. And this is just to give you an example of what the counts might look like. In the first quarter, we had 153 students with IEPs. Again, these are only pre-K, 3, 4, or 5-year-olds with an IEP. 153 in the first quarter, and there were 17 SAUs that were in cohort 1. 36 child fund. Next quarter, 189 with IEPs, 44 child fund. Next quarter, 257 with IEPs, and 75 in child fund. Then 309 in the fourth quarter, and 52. What does this tell you? There are a lot of children that are not receiving the services they need. This is needed in this state. And so once we get this up and running, you're gonna see an influx of children you didn't even know existed. Here's the kicker that I think is probably what convinced me the most of not only the need is clear, but the good that this can do, and that's where others can talk more about it than me, but by getting them into a school system and getting the services they need early, by the time they get to kindergarten and beyond, not only will they be better ready for school, kindergarten, but maybe they won't need as many services going forward in the higher grades. And I think we're already seeing that in some of the cohort 1 students that have been served. So just think about the fact that we know special ed is already increasing significantly. Maybe by doing this in this manner going forward, we can start to see a decline at the upper levels of need if we're starting to care for them at the lower level sooner. That's a hope. Again, I'm a finance person, but I have a heart and I can see that. And we all want to see what's best for the kids. That's why we do what we do, right? It's all for the kids. So, again, this is just kind of showing how and who's getting funded. So, if they're in pre-K, they're 3, 4, or 5 years old with an IEP, and you are part of a cohort, then the funding source is this other funding, which is called Early Childhood Special Ed, ECSE, or pre-K special ed, not EPS. So here's the difference you're gonna notice on these 279 counts. You're gonna put them all in, but they're not gonna count if you're part of cohort, if they have an IEP, you're not gonna see them on the 279. Because they do not count in EPS, okay? 279 is only EPS funding, this is completely separate from that. So you will see a difference and you should probably pay attention to make sure that the counts match up. That you're not seeing them on the 279 because you're in the cohort and they're being funded on this other fund. Okay? Here's the coding. The fund code is 2213, it will not change. The revenue code is 3128, it will not change. If you are doing charter accounts for special ed K to 12, that's part of EPS. If you're doing pre-K special ed, that's separate funding source, 100% state funded. I know I keep saying that, but there's a reason. We cannot mix the two. If the expenditures and the revenues get mixed, it's gonna completely mess up the calculations of funding through EPS. Okay? I'm counting on you all to help with this. This is where you shine. This is where we are completely dependent on you doing your job to the best of your ability, please. So again, we have sample chart of accounts, just like any other sample chart of accounts available on our webpage. Quarterly payments, again, based on quarterly collections made each quarter. The second, so here's how it's gonna work. Initially, the July 1 counts are probably gonna be more of an estimate, especially your first year. So the October 1 count might go down, but so far, that didn't happen in the first year. But this year, we did see a couple of SAUs that they're at October 1 count went down. The only time your total year allocation, the counts we use, will reduce funding is the October count, if the July one was higher. After that, even in the January, April counts, if your counts are lower than the October count, which is highly unlikely given the history, but if they were, we would not go lower than the October count for funding. Because we want you to be able to maintain staffing, obviously. So that is a guarantee that we have put into the procedures and policies that we will never go below the amount calculated after the second quarter collection. But it will go up if they go up. Okay? Here's how it works. I kind of explained it a little bit, but ultimately the general ed rate is your basic count times your elementary EPS rate. Disadvantage is your count times your disadvantage percentage, so that's also unique to SAUs, times your EPS rate, times the weight of 0.15. The assessment is the count times the per pupil, whatever it is every year. In EPS, we will increase it here as well. Technology, same count times the per pupil amount. Pre-K additional has an additional weight of 0.1. Then there's the additional disadvantage of 0.05. Basically, you get 0.2 for all of your disadvantaged for the extra weight. Then we have the special ed calculation, which is the count times the EPS rate times 1.5. And then the child find, which is the count of a child find with a signed parental agreement to evaluate. And that's 1,000 times. Again, not a reimbursement model, neither is EPS. Nothing to reimburse. reimbursement is federal grants. Per pupil allocation for PK children with IEPs, unique to the EPS rate at each SAU. July 1st is the first allocation, thereabouts. Then we true up the counts in October. The final allocation is in April. As long as you are up to date on all of your expenditures and have reached out to us directly, reach out. If there are high cost needs that is not being met by the allocation of funding, we will make sure you do not close out your year without having the funding to cover those costs. Okay? We can't do that without your help, so that we can reconcile the quarterly uploads into mass, as well as sending the trial balances through grants for me. Again, we're looking at the reasonable and necessary components of the costs. An expense is obviously necessary if it's directly tied to a student's IEP. And then there are reasonable expenses that reflect what would have been paid in general circumstances, allowable, reasonable, necessary, such as salaries and benefits for staff, specialized equipment, assistive technology, supplies, related services, and specialized transportation. And here is a link to information, and Jennifer Hawkins is the one who ultimately is the one you should always reach out to, and then she will find out who the expert is, if it's not her, to help you with any of your questions. And that's the last slide there. What questions do we have?
It's not about limbo.
So, sorry, I'm jumping right into the weeds. If the intent is that the cost is fully funded, how is that gonna work when we get to the end of the year? Expenses will continue to come in July and August of the prior year. But at some point, the dust will settle. And in the real world, it's very unlikely that whatever we receive will match with any what we spend. What will happen when we spend more than we receive, or vice versa?
And I didn't speak to that, so thank you, I meant to. So first of all, if you don't spend everything we give you, put it on you, roll it over to next year. Do not put it in the general fund, it needs to stay in this fund. Roll it over to next year and use it for next year's costs. Okay? It's a rolling fund. If you spend more, reach out, give us the documentation, we'll give you the more. You cover it. Now, the new year will start July 1, and we will start funding for the new counts. So hopefully you don't run out of money, and you don't have to dip into your other revenue funds. Okay? Hopefully. But we will make you whole if you spend more and it's reasonable and necessary, and you've documented properly the expenditures.
So just from an accounting standpoint, in theory, we overspent by 100,000, another 100,000. We just book that as a receivable to bring everything.
Yes.
I don't know, sorry, I'm going to throw accounting. But that's how you would picture it. The intent is for it to be net to zero every year.
Yeah. And we're not.
The auditors are gonna want to see that.
Yes, I think, yes.
Okay.
The auditor will want that.
Maybe I was thinking out of school, but I know, I think it was, second cohort, do we know yet in cohort 4, if they had, startup funds, if we were?
Oh, yes, startup funds. That's another good question. And if you were speaking out of school, it would be reflected in your annual value. So we found out in cohort 2 that we are building the plane as we fly it. Thankfully, those 17 SAUs that joined us for cohort 1 were helping us build it. Okay, we're still learning. Year two, we're still learning. We learned something in year two, that they had to bring people on board before July 1. And so they needed money to do that. And they had other expenditures that they needed to do before July 1. And so luckily, we have the ability to say, okay, we're gonna estimate what your quarter one payment's gonna be, the first quarter that starts in July. You let us know how much you need early, and we're gonna give it to you early. So we took, like, one of the SAUs said, okay, 10,000 should do it. So we sent them 10,000, I think it was April, in April, so that they could get things set up and start staffing in May. Now, that's not additional funding over and above, it's money that comes out of your first quarter, but we can send it early for setup, for purposes of setup.
Oh, also, you're funded in for July 1st, you receive your payment. However, your paid responsibility will not start until the first day of school. So you also have that cushion to kind of build off of that first year.
So did everybody hear that? We paid responsibility doesn't actually start until the first day of school, but we fund you starting July 1. Somebody else had.
You had mentioned that you took up the road to transferring, where it's not a reimbursement model, we could not create an invoice, we would just upload the trial balance. Best answer ever.
No invoice necessary, however, there may be supporting documentation needed after Barbara Ballard and her team start reviewing some of the stuff. And they would reach out.
There's a whole bunch of questions over that too.
Remember, I'm short and I may not see you, but I'm only as tall as the people sitting right now. If you're saying the things to me program, where would we upload a trial balance without doing an invoice? Because I don't think that's possible. I think it's been set up now, but Barbara Ballard, you just send it to her in an email. Really? Oh, okay, so it may not be set up yet. I may be speaking out of school. As it should be, absolutely. You can tell them, she's a question? Yeah, sorry, so maybe not set up yet, but it's being worked on.
Email
Always
everything
email to Barbara, to Jen Hopkins.
Yep, I've had some.
Yep, very good. Yeah, sorry if I said, that isn't what you do. No, you're right. Hey, I try, my team and I try to keep the funding. And all, with that comes me being heckled, I'm fine with that.
So I have a 5-year-old for the Navy in cohort 2. And I was told, that's exactly what program, but it does something.
If you have a 5-year-old who it's not their first time in pre-K, they would already in pre-K before a 4-year-old. No? Jen, you need to help me?
Yes, I didn't hear the question.
So ultimately, if you have a 5-year-old that is not going to count for this program, for whatever reason, general open, you will be able to put them in the EPS funding, you will get funding through the regular funding avenue.
Yes. What would they not count? You've got that, right?
So, right now, if you're in cohort 1, CDF has what's called 676. So if they had an IEP developed prior to December or in December, and their birthday falls between July 1 and I don't know exactly the dates, they can be 676 and continue to go to school if it's school the following year. That is only for that first cohort. After that, 676 is gone, because that's like the whole CDS thing.
That's where my confusion
Yeah,
is.
so that will go away. And so if you're having a child repeat
pay, the pre-K, and we will not pay for that after that first year. It will have to go through the EBS funding.
But she's indicating, so was this 5-year-old not in pre-K before? Do they meet the cutoff? Like, is it?
They need the age cutoff for kindergarten, but not kindergarten.
So they didn't have an IEP, right?
Yeah, they do have an IEP.
So why don't you email me? We'll figure that one out.
We may need to meet, so
I need more information.
we need your help.
Yeah, I
It
need more.
may be that there was a misunderstanding, that they thought they had already been in pre-K once.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a reason not to allow it a second time, even if you feel like they should stay back. If they're eligible for kindergarten, we can't pay for it again through this program. However, if they haven't been in pre-K, I think that might be something not positive, so we need to.
Well, I guess I just need to know the school, and then I can do some.
What's the, SAU?
26.
Yes. Now, stop there. There's
Two? Okay.
So we're gonna inherit these 3 and 4-year-olds. We have a staff member that's an OT, and they give a 3-year-old OT. And I had this separate conversation. One is
With special.
with president.
Not just pre-K.
So how do I vote that time or effort, or where is it based on the per diem? Is it break that published? How do we, I assume we're not track time we spend with these specific students? No.
We don't need to do time and effort. I'll tell you that. Everybody's done it. Program. So time and effort isn't necessary. However, what we are telling people is percentage of time that they are spent with special ed pre-K and others. So if it's just a percentage of time that they're going to be with the pre-K special ed, allocate their expenditures of the, whatever that cost is, to 2213. And everything else goes to the regular pre-K or special ed costs through EPS.
Does that mean that percentage to be lump sum?
Does that percentage need to be a lump sum?
Instead of the summer, I think we used to have a lump sum in June versus paid all summer. And so before, people that are federally funded would work from that lump sum, we don't do that. So it's for being paid July and June, we lump sum.
It's state funds. It's state funds, it's not federal, so no, we're not telling you to do it that way.
Right, but my trial balance would show until August that my expenditures for the previous year. But you don't be mind in my trial.
Okay. We'll check with our run, I mean, she probably has the answer.
Sure, other school boards have done that.
Right, they must, I'm sure they have, so. Yeah, you can charge it to that fund any time.
We have
Through it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
We're also hoping you all can do a solution to some of these questions that we may not understand. Really, for level questions. Yeah, there's still building, we actually have wings and an engine, but we don't have an engine here. Obviously, really as we fly. So you guys hear my question?
Speaking to that though, but our special ed director actually, we allocated our different service providers so that we have one working exclusively with this group, so that way there's no working through that percentage piece if that's helpful. But I keep hearing you say it's not a reimbursement, but I think there is a component though, if you're in your first year of the cohort to get the space that this is the space set up, so there's monies available for like supplies or other things, and that is reimbursement, correct? Right. Okay. And now it's where grants to be. I think it's similar, I think you have the Raleigh grant, I think it's similar to that, on top of this, for that money.
That's a part of the separate pot of money for the supplies and stuff. That is, I will set up on reimbursement, yes. But the regular funding based on accounts, it's an allocation, not a reimbursement. So it's upfront funding, and again, what we give you, if you don't spend it all, you keep it in the account, rolls over, and you use it the next year. The hope is too, look, if the next year you have high cost that we aren't covering, that we would hope that you would include the funding you saved in the first year towards those costs, and then if you still need more, we would give it, but it's all gonna work in the same. Save it.
Hopefully this isn't if you want me to have some of your argument. Are you paying the additional Maine PERS on these people, or is this the straight local workers?
Additionally, is only federal, this is not federal money. So you definitely do not have to pay the additional rate for Maine PERS. We figured that out early on.
Question, law schools, you don't get room in your school for 3 and 4-year-olds. And you were talking about other locations. Can you go into detail on that?
One of us can. Who wants to talk about partnerships?
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah.
There are districts currently that offer public pre-K classrooms in community partnerships. And a lot of those districts are also looking for expanded partnerships for placement for 3 to 5-year-olds that have IEPs, because they do not have this physical space, and this is where children are already. And so instead of having children who have the most trouble with transitioning back and forth to different places, SAUs will go out and serve the children where they're at in the community programs. And so that is an MOU and contract agreement between the SAU and the community provider.
I would also just add that this program is purposely, if you don't have room or aren't able to set up a pre-K classroom, and also with special ed, we want, what's it called, least
restrictive environment.
Least restrictive environment, look, I'm bringing all this stuff. Least restrictive environment, so melding as much as possible with typically development mental peers that are learning so many terms. That's obviously the best approach. Some of them can already be in daycares, whatever you want to call them. You may be able to, Head Start, you can partner with them as well and provide, you would pay them for the services rendered that meet the criteria that you are responsible for with the funding that we are providing.
You want to speak to that?
Please. Cheryl's going to speak to that.
So we actually do that. That's what Sanford did. So our first one that we did with is YMCA, because that's where a lot of our kids go to daycare. So we picked YMCA to do our first ones. We have an MOU with them, and we actually have it all spelled out that we actually, we kind of give them our setup expectations at the beginning of our MOU, and we actually provide them with the curriculum and the assessment, and we do the assessments for them and everything. And our assistant superintendent, which works closely with Michelle, actually has, it works closely with the YMCA, and he has developed and meets with them quarterly, and more often if it needs to be. But he actually set up the MOU, and then we have how we actually, they can bill us for their time. And so we actually have that set up too. We actually provide the meals to them. Unfortunately, right now, the state will not provide those meals, but as the school has decided that we're willing to fund that because we feel that it's important that the kids get fed. And so we have, the school committee decided to fund that locally. And the transportation actually comes out, goes part of our transportation also. But we have an MOU that if anyone needed a copy of ours, I'm willing to provide. And so that's what we did. We're actually working on 2 more currently, that we're working on 2 other partnerships with a couple of other major places that have large portions of our kids also, because we feel like this allows these kids to, they go to their class, they have their class, and then they're going into daycare at the same place. So that helps the parents, and but it also allows them to learn in an environment that they've been in for a while, and we're finding that it's working really well. And actually one of our teachers that was in our pre-K system in our home school ended up going to this organization and working there, so that it's being run similar to our current preschool in our own school systems. So we have 5 preschools within our elementary schools, 1 at our vocational system, and then this current partnership, and then 2 more partnerships we're working on. Oh, and then we're doing the CPS.
Yeah, so you start with the main environment and there's minimal disruption for children through the partnerships, which is pretty cool. And I also, before Jennifer speaks about some of that other funding, CDS is still involved, by the way, and they're here to, there are, their regional hubs are still gonna be there for support and to assist with things that maybe you're not ready to take on yet. And so that still is happening as well. Maybe you can speak to that as well, Jeff?
So CDS will become the support and service hub. And currently, for cohort 1 and 2, we will do an MOU with each SAU and we'll determine what services are still needed through CDS. Some have opted to have us do all their child lines through all the way through to the initial referral around eligibility. Some schools want to do it themselves. We have speech therapists going out to help do therapy or evaluations. So we're also doing case management. For the 3-year-olds, the schools have taken 3-year-olds on, because next year it's optional to take 3-year-olds, so you can just do 4-year-olds only, and then the following year you would take the 3-year-olds on. If you wait to cohort 4, you have to take the 4-year-olds at the same time. So our Downey site in Rockland, they, with RC 13, they primarily have taken on the role of working with the 3-year-olds. And so they have kept them, they have a preschool, Rockland has, the CDS has one preschool, so the students will come there and they'll do the case management, and they do the case management in there. That school's wisdom, I don't know if it's EGMS or what they use, but they're regulating and support them that way. So some schools don't want anything from us, from CDS, we're like, no, we're good. And then you have MOU meetings monthly, and they're like, wait a minute, we forgot about this part. So, they're still gonna have CDS to stand up, we're standing up preschools, we've worked with Auburn, we have a preschool in their school that are supporting their students. So, we're still around to support. Now we want to talk about the funding. The funding for the special for working with the classrooms. We call it internally the Lori Whittemore Fund, because we don't really have a name for it. But Lori Whittemore will come out and do an assessment of your classroom. If you don't have a classroom, she'll still come out and look at your space. She's very creative and thinks outside the box, and might be able to find a spot for you to have in your school. So a bathroom and a window, you might be able to have a classroom. So she'll come out and she'll do an assessment, and she'll provide new furniture for you. If you haven't had any furniture for 25 years and your teacher is sitting in a chair without arms that are all broken up, we will give you a new chair. So you will receive funding in that way if you need, it's really nice big shore furniture that she's doing. And so she'll come and set up with the class. She won't set it up, but she will help you design classroom. She also has a wish list that is from Amazon that has books, toys, anything you can think of. And we do also provide IEP review. So your special ed director would review the IEP with Lori or someone from our team, one of the coordinators. And if you need special toys or equipment for a particular child with an IEP, we will help support provide support with getting those items. And that is all from a separate fund. We also have funding for if you don't have a operating child, that the children can, in the room or close enough for them to go use the restroom. We do have an application process for that we can support funding a portion of that. We also, if you determine a van is necessary for transporting your children, we also have an application process for that. And you could have a van potentially provided. So there's lots of pieces to it that once you join the board, we have bi-weekly meetings. Sometimes they're not, the business managers will not need to attend. But Paula and Kim and I are trying to make sure we have several meetings throughout the year that the business managers can attend and ask their questions. As I meet with the cohorts to do the introduction with Sandy to explain the process, many times we never see a business manager. And it makes me really sad because it's like, okay, we really need to have them, if you're asking questions, the special ed director or the superintendent are asking questions that I know all of you already know. So, and will know how to ask the questions. So if you get wind in your SAU that there's a meeting happening, ask to join, because it's very important to have the entire team present at these meetings. With cohort 1, we had schools that the business manager said to me, I had no idea we were even doing this. And so it's not a good feeling to have when you're like, oh dear, let me show you how we're going to manage this. So please, if you get rid of that, attend to say, hey, I think we need to go to those meetings so I understand since I'm responsible for the physical part of it. And at any time, email, Paula, Kim and I can hop on calls for you with any questions you may have. If after a meeting you're still like, I'm late, I don't know what's going on. But reach out anytime. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, my email is Charlotte.
Looking to most likely going to be used Maine Care Building soon. So how does Maine Care Building impact this? Or
Maine Care Building. So we all want you to build Maine Care. We want you to, because guess what's happening? Millions of dollars are being left on the table at the federal level because Maine Care Building isn't happening. They're not doing it for a couple of reasons. Number one, you don't have the capacity, and it's a lot of work, right? Number two, you're like, what's the point? We're only gonna get 70%. Well, that's all true. However, isn't 70% on a dollar better than zero? Just saying, right? So yeah, there's a Maine Care seat portion. So the law for this effort included that the state is supposed to come up with a Maine Care Building option. We haven't done it yet. We're working on it, we're trying to figure it out, but it's not done yet. That's not answering your question. If you are doing Maine Care Building, or if you are going to do Maine Care Building, please do so. Please. It will help all of us in the total cost of education. When it comes to this effort here, right now, we're still looking at details, but right now, because the state's funding 100%, if you build Maine Care, the state pays the seed. The state, basically, you should put the money that you receive, the revenue, in the fund, and we should reduce the amount we're giving you accordingly.
I'm thinking of it, don't fit.
Right, exactly.
So then it's a matter of making sure you then know which ones were pre-K, Maine Care versus not.
Again.
When your revenue comes in.
You have to separate out the pre-K from the pre-K special ed Maine Care, because again, it's really important, and I know it's Sounds terrible, doesn't it? But it seems like a lot of work. Um, Hopefully, it'll all work out. I'm really hopeful. The discussions are happening, that there'll be a statewide Maine care building opportunity at some point very soon. And then you wouldn't need to worry about that. If nothing else, here's another option that I'm considering. We all have heard of education service centers. Some of you are members of them. What about education service centers starting to offer Maine care billing to their members? That would be something that maybe they could consider.
I don't know how many houses have a foodie. I'm trying to line up with the next area at the foodie, and they charge 11%, but they do all three. I just met with them, they didn't have patient fee is minimal, and so for 11%, and it's gonna be worth it for us again.
11% off 70, so it's more than you work, right? So the thing about again, that comes off the total cost of education that all of us are taxpayers in the state of Maine. We're all paying tax dollars, whether it's state funded or local funded. And so the more we can get from the vets, we're paying them as well. But if you think about it, if we can use it, if we can get it, it's gonna help us here at the local, at a local level. Anybody else? Yes.
So in my district right now, we're on a cohort, we're looking at cohort 3 on a partnership. It's going to Stanford with one classroom, which is awesome. One of the things that's really giving folks heartburn is that idea of reasonable and necessary and what's in the IFP and how to bring costs are going to be across the state for some of these services. And we're in a sort of high cost labor area. So I'm wondering if folks have had some conversations about what that looks like.
So the first thing that I think I can answer relatively easily is, I believe Barb would say, if it's in the IEP, it's necessary. So if it's in the IEP, we are not going to argue that it's not something we're going to pay, correct? Special ed experts?
It is, Sandy does ask. Sandy Flat does ask for if you need to hire additional staff after, like during the school year, just to send the IEP over to her and like a notice to review. And then she reviews it quickly and gives a yay or a nay to replace this. And one other thing is we do ask that the SAU creates a budget to submit to us so we can help review that with you. Some folks want a coordinator, some don't have a coordinator, and if you have a large school, I would recommend a coordinator. And so we can kind of help you develop that budget so you're not starting the beginning of the school year with not even knowing what the staff needs. So we encourage you to create a budget and then meet with us to discuss this.
And I guess your question ultimately is, if you have an expense and you send it in, and we're like, we don't agree that that's reasonable and necessary, that you're not gonna receive the funding for it. We're not gonna be unreasonable. We're partners with you. We do not want to see you have to spend your money for something that is necessary. There were no boundaries or anything like that put into the law. And that's part of the process where we're happy to figure this out as we go, because we also have a responsibility to be the stewards of our taxpayer money. All of us have that problem, right? Not problem. We all have that part of our job. It's important. You have it at your level and we have it at our level. I am certain that you and your cohorts are not going to be asking for things that aren't really necessary. And so I find it hard to believe, although I will tell you that there's been some requests for some buses that it seems for four people, why do you need a full bus, right? So let's just be reasonable. Here's the thing. If you need a bus, that's fine. But if you're only using a bus or a van for an hour for this particular pre-K special ed, and the rest of the time you expect to use it for everything else, general ed, buy it general ed, and then charge back the cost for the pre-K special. Charge back, but don't buy it for special ed, when the intention is really to use it for everything.
So you could do that percentage.
Absolutely.
Say,
Percentage of the bus, percentage of, absolutely. Yep, charge it back. What am I saying that makes you guys laugh?
It's just the logistics of doing all these applications.
Yeah.
You got teachers, you got specialists, you got APF doesn't, or Medicaid, you got transportation, you got all these other things, which are all going to be 100%.
Absolutely.
And that, where that's going to fall, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Chuck and we're laughing, what frustration and struggle of processing that is, that all takes someone in the business office.
I know.
And all that.
I know,
And
and
then
that's,
you get all those other departments like SPED and transportation to also be on your team to provide that information, which means it's a lot of administrative work and oversight, which we're not going to get reimbursed for.
well, you're not getting reimbursed to begin with.
We're not going to get reimbursed.
The R word is a really bad word for me, but I correct the commissioner often as well, so please don't, you think that.
But I think that's just the administrative struggle of it is.
I know, and frankly, there are, the formula that we're allocating funding for should include some level of administrative costs. So maybe you need to hire additional staff for administrative purposes for these things. I know, hiring staffing is already being called, right, to get that. I will just say this, the other option that was considered, the first option that was considered for this one going into the legislature to be put into the bill was just include the NDPS. I fought tooth and nail, and I hope I did the right thing to keep it out of EPS. Because I did not want this to have a ownership. And it was going to be, I get it, there's a lot more administrative requirements by keeping it out. But I think it would have been a lot more difficult if it had stayed in. And so I fought hard to keep it out. And thankfully they listened. And I get that the other side of that is more work. Guess what? More work for us too, we didn't get more staff either.
And we appreciate taking it out, so at the end of the day, for any of us who will not defend this business long enough, when it came out that Maine PERS was going to be fully covered, and there will be no local share of Maine PERS.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
And it never happened, and it's part of the formula, and none of the formula for however many decades still.
Anything that is in dollar 279 has a local share, anything.
It's a hard one.
It is.
So we do appreciate keeping it separate and not part of it.
And it's not intended to go into it at all. Some people think it is a transition period. The transition is just getting everybody on board. It's staying out of it.
So we send pre-K IEPs up for review at the state, and, you know, IEPs are what they are, so we have a one-on-one, and then meet you guys, and if they know.
No, we
then the
wouldn't.
parent process.
We're not saying no. Sometimes we'll review the IEP and we'll get a request that says we need an ed tech, but then when we read the written notice, we don't see it documented. And so those are the things that we're looking at, like, is it documented that you?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Sometimes we get to the IEP with they terms or not, actually, that's not our role. Your role, your IEP team,
Yeah, the IEP team.
that's their role, we would never do that. Okay? How do you join cohort 3? Is anybody interested, or is anybody actually already joined cohort 3? Yay? Maybe? Okay. So how do you join if you're interested? Reach out to Jen Hawkins, and she will help you. So here's the deal, maybe you can understand what Jen was I mean, exactly, and because like therefore, everybody has to do this, 3 and 4 year olds, the whole kit and caboodle. For the early adopters, we are able to allow you to start out with just 4 year olds in the first year. And then see what with them. And then pull the 3 year olds in the second year, or even halfway through the year. But once year 4 hits, that's not gonna be an option, because you have to do all 3 and 4. So if you're thinking about it, I recommend year 3, because you can at least, if you want, start out with 4 year olds, and then bring in 3 year olds second year, because for some reason people are a little hesitant about 3 year olds. Figure, those toddlers know what they're doing. I'm sure they're easily taught and maintained. So that's just something to consider. The other, Michelle's here also, and I really appreciate Cheryl. Cheryl has experience going through it. So if you have specific questions about how it's going, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer it. And then Michelle also can talk about pre-K partnerships for just regular pre-K, if you have questions about that. Is there anything you want to say about that?
I will say that one really great resource, and I know that Jen's team also has shared it out, but for those of you wondering about community providers, there's a website called Childcare Choices. And when you go to that website, you can enter your zip code, and it is essentially a licensed provider lookup. And that will show you that all of the licensed providers that are in your catchment area. So it is a very helpful tool when identifying potential partners for pre-K and early childhood special ed. Yeah. Yes. So also on, thank you, Jen. Also on that site, one of the things that the early learning team has worked with with Jen's team, with the early childhood special ed team, is all of the childcare providers in the state of Maine, if they are licensed childcare providers, they need to be on a quality rating and improvement scale. And that is overseen mostly by DHHS and the Office of Child and Family Services. And there are different star levels, where star level 5 is usually some sort of national accreditation, either with NACE or Family Child Care National Accreditation. And what the early childhood special ed team has begun to work towards is requiring a program to be at a star 3. And so that is because there are certain administrative kind of pieces that are embedded in a star 3 that would help with the administrative load on a childcare center to provide this kind of support and partnership. They also need to have a certain level of their staff needs to be at a certain credential or degree. And so there's a lot of safeguards. So a lot of things we hear is about SAUs having real hard time with that oversight. And so with a star 3 program, there is, supervision. There are annual professional development plans. There are a certain number of there's a certain amount of oversight that's built into that star 3, and including a rising an inclusive practices checklist that they need to fill out at a star 3 that talks about their program and their policies being about inclusivity. And so for a lot of programs, that means no expelling of children because of behaviors and working with families and things like that. So
What was the name of the website?
it's called Childcare Choices. So it's childcarechoices.me.
The other thing we do have available that we created a spreadsheet that will do an estimate funding for you using the current FY26 funding numbers. And so Jen can provide estimate numbers for your area of those that would be coming in for services. And then put the number in and it will show you what the calculation would be. It also does it by quarter, so if you want to say expect an increase of 10% or whatever by quarter, it will show you what your calculated funding for this would be. And Jen has a popular template that she can send along with numbers to you so that you can get a sense of what is the funding approximately. It's not exact because it's usually this year and this would be next year for cohort 3. So, but that's an option too, so you get a sense of, okay, what kind of funding we're looking at. It's a spreadsheet. You guys got enough else today? Not yet.
Is it a start, like, is it a July start, or is it something that you could join mid-program?
Yeah.
Start.
We had a couple exceptions this year with, Skowhegan was an exception this year because they were having a new school built, and so they were able to, we started with Northlock, and then the rest of the schools joined in January, but typically it's kind of a hard lift to join in the middle because we miss a lot of trainings. And if you've met with us at all, with Sandy, myself, Lou Collins, or Holly Green, you should already have a spreadsheet with your allocation on it because it would have been sent to whoever was in the meeting with us. And if you don't have that, maybe reach out to me. I can give it to you, or one of your folks on your team, and they should be able to provide the notes.
A lot of information, I understand. You all feel better or worse after this? Still kind of, okay. One person's better, everybody else is worse. Again, Heather got me again. Is there anything else anybody up here wanted to add? No other questions?
Paula, I'll just say one thing.
Sure.
So for any SAUs that do have questions about partnerships and starting partnerships and what those could look like, definitely feel free. You can reach out to me or anybody on the early learning team. We have, MOU templates and, even things when you're meeting a partner, what to look for in a partner and how to come up with those shared common goals for children and families. So I'm happy to help support anyway.
I will add one other thing. Pre-K special ed includes 3-year-olds, but guess what? Still doesn't include 3-year-olds. Pre-K non-special ed. So that's something that's in statute. Call a representative if you want that included in APS funding going forward. If you're planning to start up pre-K programs, you'd like to include 3-year-olds that aren't special ed. Right now, there's no funding for it at the state level. But if they have special ed, then they are through this program. Just kind of making that a little clearer, because I know you'll think of that question later on. All right, well, I don't want to take any more time if you're all done asking your questions, but if you think of something, you know how to reach us. So please reach out. We'll hand it back over to Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us and your team. Great session, I think. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Our next meeting is in February. So we have a ways to go. We're going to try to get some lunch and learn schedule, and we'd love to hear from you about topics for our February meeting. And I think that's it for today. Thank you for coming.